the ultimate roadmap is your heart and what you're feeling. That can soar well beyond and over any technical ability, in my opinion.
Hello, my fellow Martians. My name is Harry Mars, and this is the On Mars Pod, where we take a deep dive into creative professionals, entrepreneurs, and other inspiring Martians alike.
Way bigger and better than I could ever imagine if I just do this other thing for now. Just the crazy rock star lifestyle, like you could just see it happening as you listen to it. I think that's like good for my like bodily health. So it's like the mind, the body, and then like the spirit is found within.
Hello, my fellow Martians. Today on Mars, we are joined by an artist, musician, and producer with over 20 years of experience. Well, almost 20 years of experience, I should say. Everybody, please welcome Joey Gutos. Thank you for being here today, man.
Thanks for having me, brother.
Yes, sir. So on Mars, we profile creative professionals, entrepreneurs, and other inspiring Martians alike. That's why I'm stoked to have you here, man. Like I was saying off air, we have mutual friends like Esteban Obregon, Chase Warren. So just cool. I'm stoked for this conversation, man.
Absolutely, dude. And it's been a minute since we got to like kick it too. So.
For sure, yeah. And we've only hung out on like a couple occasions, so it's cool that like we're getting to have this conversation and get to know each other a little bit more on this level. So yeah,
100%, man.
So to get started, man, did you grow up in AZ?
Yeah, Tempe, born and raised, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up in South Tempe, all the way through high school. Moved up North Tempe, went to ASU, and yeah, I'm still there. So
hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
What were those early inspirations growing up? Like, what were you doing as a kid? Were you playing sports? Were you always into music?
Dude.
What's up?
All sorts of stuff, man. I was actually originally my artistic expression was painting and acting, and kind of through doing a little bit of both of those. It just kind of primed me from when I finally hit about like 9 or 10 years old, maybe like 4th or 5th grade. And I heard Led Zeppelin for the first time in my dad's car on our way to Blockbuster. I'll never forget it. I'm like in the back seat and like, I grabbed both the seats. I'm like, what is this?
Yes.
And up to that point, it's funny. I was watching the episode with Malik, and he'd mentioned maybe Backstreet Boys or NSYNC.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of into more of that vibe, like the Radio
Boy bands,
Disney back in the
yes,
day.
dude.
I tried to start my own boy band when I was in like 3rd grade.
No way.
Yeah.
Damn,
yeah.
dude.
We actually, I've been trying to find the video forever, and I always give my parents shit for, I'm not going to say they lost it, but they've misplaced it. There's a video of me doing a solo rendition of Bye 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 by NSYNC.
With the
like doing the dance and shit. Yeah. For the like talent show for my summer, Kids Zone program. And I had like a troupe of, kids that it was like, all right, this is our boy band. Like this is going to be our first performance. And then one by one, each person just like dipped out and quit last minute. And I had this counselor. She's like, man, you still got to get up there and do it. I'm like, by myself, it's just going to be weird. And man, it was like, I still kind of remember doing it, but it just gave me such a high. And anyways, that kind of backtracked a little bit, but that was my first on-stage experience.
Yeah.
Had a great time. Did a few like performances and plays when I was more into acting. That was great. The painting just kind of was like my own, that was more of a solitude, kind of introverted activity that I could do because I'm kind of just that way. I like doing, I'm an only child, so I don't know if that's just coincides with that personality trait.
Yeah.
And so by the time, like I said, I heard Zeppelin and just a lot of different types of that style of music. That's what got me into guitar and really immersed in music. And so I kind of took everything else that I had gotten leading up to that point and just went full throttle into learning guitar and being obsessed with, I spent most of my classes like drawing like band logos and like trying to think of what my ideal band would look like and sound like. And yeah, I've just kind of been obsessed ever since.
That's
So,
amazing, man. It's cool to
yeah.
see those sparks as like a young child, like acting that ended up, or not just acting, but like performing on stage
Yeah.
as the Backstreet Boys solo act. It's like,
Yeah.
it's almost like a precursor to who you ended up being in your, later years as an adult, which is so cool, man. I love to hear that shit.
Yeah.
Moving from that, your musical instruments from your parents. You mentioned they were playing Zeppelin in the car. Was there any other artists that stood out to you at the time that were influencing your musical?
Well, my parents always played their music growing up. So like from birth, I've been listening to, I'd say the top 3 or 4, Beethoven, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and more on my mom's end of things, like Bruce Springsteen and Tom Petty. So like
Nice.
that kind of collection. And yeah, there's just something about the guitar that just resonated with me. And I had actually kind of been thinking about getting into music around that time. Once I heard Zeppelin, it was like pretty clear. I was still looking at different, like maybe drums, but my parents didn't want me to play drums. They're like, we don't want to hear that banging
Yeah, of
shit
course.
constantly. Was looking into bass. I even like bought, I remember going to Walmart and I don't know who I asked, but you get the recommendation on like bass guitarist. Who should I research? And it was like Jaco Pastorius and I mean, John Paul Jones from Zeppelin's great too, but yeah, kind of like tried out a few different things, but guitar was just, it stuck with me. So really what locked me in after that was the School of Rock, the movie.
Oh yeah.
That was like, those kids were my age. So I was seeing them like just playing like rock gods and, they were doing it and they just looked so cool doing it. And I mean, that's just such a great movie all around. Like, I still from time to time will run into situations interacting with different musicians or artists or trying to figure out like, who am I as an artist? Why am I doing this? How do I approach it? And I'll still think of scenes from that movie that's like, oh, that's the blueprint right there.
Yeah.
It's a perfect movie. For anybody who hasn't seen that and you're interested in like diving into music or getting your kids into music,
School of
Perfect.
Rock, Jack
School of
Black,
Rock,
2003, I think is what it was. Something like that. It's
man.
like 20 years ago, but a staple, like straight up. And I'm so glad you brought that up because I remember being a kid seeing that before I was like into music, like writing or anything like that, and just
Yeah.
like being so enthralled by like specifically the drummer, Freddie.
Yeah,
And
dude.
I thought he was the coolest guy ever.
Yeah.
And I remember like that whole movie, I would watch it so many times. And then I remember at one point I would use the scene selection and go to the very last performance.
Yeah.
And I watched that scene so many times.
Dude,
and
absolutely.
It's like,
Chills
it's
every
crazy.
time.
Crazy, bro. It's like
Yeah. Oh man.
Dude, it's like I could just see it now in my head, like as I'm talking about it.
Yeah, dude.
But it's like it's so cool that like you also had that similar experience where it's like these everything around you is kind of influencing you becoming the person that you are.
Yeah.
So when did you start playing guitar then? Because I know you said it was when you were a child, but when was that?
Right around that time, I kept begging my parents for one. And I'm sure as I still am today, I, just have severe like ADD with different activities and hobbies. I'm always picking up something new or like, I just have a lot of different things I'm interested in, but I'm sure it was like that back then. So like, well, let's make sure you really want to do this before we
Yeah.
invest the money and the time. But yeah, they got me like my first like little mini guitar from Guitar Center. It's probably like $70 or something. And yeah, like after that movie, I remember going home and I didn't even know how to hold it. I kind of had it like laid out on my lap, like a lap steel.
Yeah.
And I was using my thumbs on both hands. Like I was fretting with my thumb over here, but I kind of found that I had a decent ear because I was like remembering some of the songs from that movie. Like I remember Smoke on the Water and bam, 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 bam. Yeah. What's
Yep.
the da-na-na, they did an AC/DC song in it too. And I was like kind of figuring them out, at least, like the single notes or whatever, the basis of it. So my parents kind of like saw me doing that. They're like, okay, like there's, some promise here. So I'd say, yeah, like right around 10 or so. That's when I got my first guitar and got immersed into it. Took lessons for a couple years. I took a few different people to go to. And it's funny, like I always, like, I remember my music class in elementary school was one of my least favorite classes because of the teacher. And I loved being in there, and there are all these instruments out, but it was like the really like rigid structure and like, this is what it is, do, me, like doing all the kind of, I don't know, just it not only made my skin crawl, like this is so cheesy, but it was just not fun. But every time we'd get up to go to like jam out on some of the music or the instruments, I just had a blast. And so I later on had a few guitar teachers that were also kind of like a little bit more rigid, and it just didn't work out. But like, I mean, thank God my parents kind of realized that, and they just knew that I needed the right teacher, found the right teacher. His name's Bob Hermes. Shout out to you, Bob, if you ever see this. And he was just, he incorporated, okay, what do you already know? What do you want to learn? And let me get you out of your comfort zone and start creating right away. Yeah. So like he got me, he had a software called Cakewalk. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Very similar to Logic, I would say, like in its layout. Really solid program. I just don't know if it ever really took off. I'm pretty sure it's still around. Okay. But it's just another DAW. And so he would like have these songwriting competitions with all of his students, and like, I didn't know how to write a song at all, but like he'd be just encouraging me to not only write, but to sing, which was something I was really scared about as well. Never wanted to sing, had no interest in it. I also thought singing was cheesy. Yeah. I just wanted to be like the shredding guitarist. And, but he pushed me to get into that, and I've been just kind of hooked on that process ever since. Yeah, dude. I love that your guitar teacher was pushing you to be an artist. You know what I'm saying? That's really what that was. It's like, it's less of like the technical, this is what the chords are, this is what the notes are. It's like, yeah, these are the notes and the chords and stuff like that, but like, let's start writing songs. Let's start putting these chords together. Let's start making melodies. Let's start thinking about it in that way versus like super formal. That's so cool that your parents also had like the, I guess they were tapped in enough to realize that like you weren't reaching your full potential because you weren't with the right teacher. Yeah. That's cool. Cause a lot of parents, like they might pay for the lessons, but like they don't care to like, how are the lessons going? Or like trying to, I don't know. Did you tell them like, hey, I need a new teacher? Were they the ones that like said, hey, let's try a new teacher? I think, yeah, because they knew I was really interested in music. Right. And like, even before I had an instrument, my dad had this little handheld tape recorder, which back in the day was like kind of a cutting edge technology. And I would take that and just make songs with my voice, and like even like voice out the melodies of the guitar riffs, be like, da na na na. Really? Yeah. Nice. That's so cool. And so they knew like I had to do it. Yeah. But I maybe I said something, like, oh, it's not having fun or whatever. I don't really know. I haven't asked my parents about that, but it's a good question. I should ask them. For sure. Cause it seems like they obviously had some sort of insight to like switch it up a little bit, which is, I think, a really cool move for them to do that, to like almost like support you so much. Like even as a young kid, like, hey man, he loves this. He's good at it. Let's double down. Let's push this. Let's not like suppress it type deal. I think that's super important growing up, having that early support system from your parents, especially, if it's something that you're close to your parents, their validation means a lot. So it's like being able to have that confidence from them that gives you the self-confidence that, hey, this is cool. I'm good at this, or like, you know what I'm saying? So that's cool that you had that interaction with your guitar teachers early on, because your parents, pushed that. And, I mean, ultimately ended up making you an artist. So at that point, that's when you started writing your own songs then with that guitar teacher. Yeah. I've been doing like some writing before that too, but Yeah, I think it was really once I started being encouraged to sing, at least on my own terms, like
Yeah.
it wasn't like I'm gonna make you stand up here in front of all my students and sing or whatever. It was like we got to do it in the context of like the room with the teacher. We would record, and then he would still actually give all the songs, which was another thing that got me like the heebie-jeebies at first. I'm like, other people are gonna hear my songs. But he would give everybody all the songs from all the students, and then everybody would get to vote their first and second favorites, I think. And he'd have like a contest or whatever. And it was just kind of a cool way to like encourage not only the competitive spirit, like I want to make the best song,
Right.
but also to be comfortable with giving your creations to the world, even if your world is 10 people that go to this teacher.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like a giant thing,
Absolutely. And that teacher, it sounds like he's just like, he's really good at what he does, because he's making artists. And that's really like, if you want to play guitar and be a musician, like that's really like the end all be all. Like if you want to make it as a career, you got to be an artist. And so it's like, I feel like almost breaking down those barriers for kids of like, almost like a stage presence in a way, being comfortable in front of crowds, being like confident with your work, and these things that like if you don't put yourself out there and do those things and start creating these songs and like start showing them to people and breaking those nerve barriers down yourself, that's not going to happen unless someone else does it for you. So it's cool that like that he was able to kind of be that person to push your comfortability out of its comfort zone, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that obviously, made you more confident, self-confident to then play shows and then be able to, get into your bag that way. And man, I love that. That's so cool. I feel like a lot of guitar teachers don't do that. Like that whole, the way that you're explaining it, like everybody that I've known that's taken lessons, it's always been like a real technical thing, learning a lot of pentatonic scales and all this extra stuff that's like went over my head a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's just like you feeling.
Did you take lessons at all?
I never took lessons, but I played guitar with a bunch of people that did, and I never took lessons, so I was always like self-taught. So I was on Ultimate Guitar all the time, playing tabs, learning chords, and then like eventually started like doing covers. I didn't even start writing music until I was playing music for like 7 years. So it's like, that was kind of, that's also why like, it's cool that you were introduced to writing and performing in those early days of like you didn't really start too much with like covers. Obviously everyone starts with covers, learning songs that they already know, but like almost immediately you went into that world of like writing and like figuring out like new songs and like writing songs. And I think that just like changed, like that rewires your brain a little bit when you start creating the music versus just playing someone else's music. But yeah, it's like, it's cool that that your teacher had that experience, you had that experience with your teacher though, so it wasn't super analytical.
Yeah, and I don't want to dog on the technical aspects of things too, because that's obviously important. It's just like more tools in your bag, right? Like,
exactly.
It's a little bit, it's kind of like a roadmap in a sense. But the ultimate roadmap is your heart and what you're feeling, like the emotion, because that can soar well beyond and over any technical ability, in my opinion. Like you can just feel something. Like, I'll always love Nirvana for that reason. Like Kurt Cobain, he didn't really have any per se technical ability that like some seasoned musician would look at and be like, oh, bravo, but like he could communicate an emotion, and I think that's what resonates with people the most. So we did a balance of things,
for sure.
But yeah, I think the emotion was always like number one.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. And I love that the way that you said it, it's like just like another tool in your bag, because it's like, for sure, it's like if you're gonna be the best musician in the world, you need to have the techniques and like the skill on that level too. But it's like having that balance and like almost giving you that showmanship kind of like a performance aspect of the instrument, like putting you in front of people and writing songs and stuff like that. That's like, I feel like not a lot of people, even people that I know that play guitar, they don't write songs. They don't perform in front of people. Like they just do it to like be able to play, and like they just love playing and they like playing covers and whatever, especially ones that that don't really play professionally now. They just like know how to play guitar, like people that started as kids, they just did it as hobbies and stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like if those people would have been exposed to that like performance aspect and like writing and like that creativity, that may have like sparked them into wanting to become an artist. And I think that's like super foundational to why you ended up becoming an artist and, you know, eventually starting your own band for real and touring and all this stuff. And now you do it full time, which is crazy, dude. So it's so cool, man. Shout out to your guitar teacher.
Yeah.
What's his name again?
Shout out to Bob.
Bob, man. Shout out, bro.
Yeah.
You're a legend, dog.
Seriously, man. He's still doing it. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dang. Wow.
Yeah.
Over 20 years in the game, dude.
Oh,
Dang.
he's probably been doing it for like, I know he was probably doing it at least a decade or more when I started going to him. So it's probably been like 30,
40 years.
Yeah, who
Jeez,
knows?
Man, I love that. That's so cool, bro.
Yeah.
So this was in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
Yep.
So in that time, music had a totally different climate. You know,
yeah.
radio was huge. Music videos were huge.
Yep.
Everything was just different. The way we consumed music. Do you remember early days watching VH1, MTV? Was that a part of your life?
Yeah, I would try and I wasn't like super like technically allowed to watch some of that like in the early days.
You'd sneak it.
So I'd try to wake up before my parents because they always slept in later than I did on weekends, you know? So I'd get out there and like watch and just keep a close ear out.
Top 20 countdown.
Yeah. And it was just like the coolest thing, man. Like that, seeing those artists and just people like being exactly who they wanted to be, or, you know, at least it seemed that way. Like I remember when the Edge 103.9 was like pure alternative, like Sum 41 and like early Green Day and Chili Peppers. You know, I remember the first time hearing Californication album, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like,
so good.
You see the music, like it just has that strong of a sound and a presence. It's like you're right there in California on Venice Beach, overlooking the beach, and you know there's beautiful women and all these weird artists out there, and just the crazy rock star lifestyle. Like you could just see it happening as you listen to it. So yeah, I remember for some reason the first music video that popped into my mind was Fat Lit by Sum 41. Cause that was just like, I know that there's a million people out there that think Sum 41 was not punk and yada, yada, yada. Who gives a shit? It was punk rock to me at that age, and it still resonates with me when I hear it today. Like every now and then I actually have a playlist on my phone called Testosterone. And whenever I'm like feeling angsty and shit, I'll throw that on and Fat Lips on there for sure. I'll just crank that up. And Doctor said my mom should have had no bullshit.
Dude, I love that. And when you talk about like Californication, it brings me back to a time where storytelling was really important in music and in videos especially. So I feel like that's something that like was really important back in the day that people would invest in, you know, like the stories in music videos and like almost creating these visuals that would like that would bring that song, give that song an identity almost, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of songs that I think of now. It's funny because I referenced this already in, I think in Chase's episode, when I watched 50 Cent in the Club. It's like when I listen to that song, I almost like, the music video comes to my head first, just like just because of how much it was played and how much I heard that, and like Hot in Here Nelly, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I see the music video as I'm like hearing the song. So it's like, it's cool that you were able to grow up in that era, because I feel like you were able to kind of take that later on and, you know, have that artistic approach to your music videos and your songs and things like that. It was like the whole package of being an artist. That's like something that was, I think, a lot more like, I guess it was different back then. You know what I'm saying? It's just like those were icons back in the day, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, like, You know, it's like there's so many artists now that I feel like sometimes things get kind of lost in the wash. But because it was like kind of like our funnels of music were a little bit limited, you know, it was either radio, TV, and movies.
Yeah.
So it was just like you really didn't like get music unless you like you know, heard it somewhere else and then bought the CD, you know. So it's just like the only people that were really getting pushed were the major artists because they were the only ones with the funds to be able to distribute. So it's just like we were almost like given like a certain types of artists, but that was like our reference points of like what it means to be an artist. And now it's just like it's all over the place, you know, like anybody is an artist. So it's just like, but back then it was like it felt like really defined as like, oh man, the rock star life, you know, like the girls, the California, the all that stuff. It was just like part of music and like part of being an artist.
Yeah. Do you think the fact that there was more limited access to all that, there was more strategy maybe put behind it, and more time spent? Or do you think it's purely just the fact that we didn't have like as much of a reference point to a million different things that stuff resonated with us that more deeply, or a combination maybe?
I think it might be a combination. I think on like the executive side, like I think there was probably a lot more like because there was like funding involved and like they would plan these things out and they would have probably pretty structured schedules with these artists for like drop dates and releases on things. So I feel like there probably was a lot more like scheduling on that end, but then also it's just like they were almost like creating the reference based off of like their references. So it's just like, because music videos have been around since, you know, a while, but it's like an artistry has been around for a while, but it's like it's always developing. But I feel like in that 2000s era, it was like almost at that pinnacle of just like, if you were an artist, you were like, whew, like A-list, you know what I'm saying? It's like MTV was huge, VH1 was huge, and it was just like music was almost like if you were a musician, you were as big as like a Hollywood actor. Like if you were like the top guy. So I just feel like it was a little bit of both. But now it's just like because it's so concentrated and people's attention spans are so short, it's like people are like rushing to get things out. There's not as much like strategy behind it as much now. I see it's more like a get it out as much like almost like filling it up just as much as possible, just because it's like it's more chances of like people seeing it if you put more out, if you're more consistent and stuff like that, versus like back in the 2000s where like people would release like one album a year maybe if that's how it worked out. But it's just like, but yeah, now it's just so different because I think probably because it's more DIY. It's like a lot less corporate structure, but I don't know. I guess that's double-edged sword.
Yeah, really,
just like,
I was gonna say, man, there's always a caveat. Like, you have the more means or the more access you have to the means of production and distribution. It's like, yeah, it gives you all the freedom, but now you have that much more you're competing with, A, and B, you also like run the risk of like when your creation or whatever that you're putting out there doesn't get seen by as many people as maybe you thought it should have or whatever, that can also mess with your psyche. And at the end of the day, it's like we just need to be thankful that we have access to all these tools and that we get to express ourselves, and to share it with some people when we can. Because I mean, up until semi-recently, people haven't been able to do all of those things. You know, you could always write songs and do whatever you want, but you don't have access to recording or making videos or, you know, getting a physical product to somebody, or whether it's digital. Like we really do have a lot to be thankful for. And I have a tendency to get, you know, up in my own head about that and maybe not share as much as I have and kind of keep things a little bit closer. So maybe as a defense mechanism, maybe as a middle finger to the, you know, like the social media system and the algorithm. And I don't know, I'm finding a balance. You know, I think it's, I'm always seeking to have like a good balance between this is stuff that's just for me and here's the stuff I actually want to give people, because I really do enjoy sharing and seeing what, and not even from an ego perspective, although I'm sure it's always somewhat tied to the ego when you share something. Right. and it has a good reaction, you know, even if you do something kind for whomever, it's like you're still feeling good about that, and that's okay, you know, feel good about it. But there's nothing like being able to perform a song or give a song in a video or a podcast or just something that you put some time and effort and your personal a piece of yourself into and have it resonate with somebody. That's just like what's better than that, man? Like,
For sure, man. And I guess to tie that point to like growing up in those early days when things were a little bit more like corporate, it's cool that we were able to grow up in that era because it's like now it's great that we all have access to tools and stuff to be able to self-distribute, self-produce, everything, so that way we have the leverage and the labels no longer have all the control, which is amazing. And like if anyone's thinking that I want that to be like that, I don't. I love where we're at right now. I love that we can do these things because it's like back in the day we didn't have the resources to be able to do these things, but it's like it's cool that we were able to at least grow up in that era where it's like the artists, there was like a real concentrated pool of artists, so we were able to see like how they moved or like what they looked like to us and like see those reference points. I feel like it's really cool because it's like they ended up influencing, you know, who we ended up becoming. But I love that we're in a position now as creatives to be able to have all these resources, you know, be able to do the DIY generation, you know, that's what we are. So I love that. And it's like, it almost gives us that power that the labels used to have, you know, where it's like, distribution, we can push it out, we can promote it, we can book the shows, we can do all this stuff ourselves and own 100%. It's like, that's like the business side of it is like also really cool on that end where it's just like not only can we do all these things, but now we can also own everything. So yeah, man, I think it's just really cool because it's like, yeah, that it influenced us early in the day, but it's just like now being able to take that, like what we know about being an artist, and then it's like using the tools that we have access to be that artist that, you know, always as a kid you wanted to be. Yes, it's so sick because like kids in their 20s back in those days, if they wanted to be an artist, good luck, kid. You know what I'm saying? It's like
you rely entirely on the system,
right? It's like you had to pay for studio time. You had to find time to be able to like do all these things and also be able to fund them. I think that's the biggest thing is being able to fund these things. Like music was not cheap. Like making music was not cheap. So it's like when digital came into play and like everything started becoming more on the consumer level, it just totally changed everything.
And it's interesting that also at that same time, once it became available at the consumer level, now it's harder to make money in music though, you know, like that's the kind of other end of it. It's like,
exactly.
It back in the day, it took a lot more money to make the music, but you could at least make some money off of it, where now it's a little bit more convoluted. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's, we're not doing this to make a buck on everything that we do, but in order to do what we love to do as much as possible and what we're best at doing, we have to be able to, you know, make a living. So it's like you do have to kind of become your own entrepreneur, like if you want to be an artist nowadays. And I still just like push back on that against myself every once in a while. It's like, no, you just need to focus on being as good of an artist as possible, which is 100% true. But like that can't be the only thing unless you want to just wait around for some opportunity that some elusive, you know, idea of an opportunity that could come. But even if it does come, it still might not work out in your favor, and you might lose creative control. You might just become there's so many accounts of musicians that have made it huge, but that are still very unhappy with the situation they're stuck in, and they feel like they're not, that isn't what they signed up for.
Absolutely. And it's like people see the money first. They see the label, like you're talking about being signed to a label or something like that. You know, like if a record label approaches you and like takes your creative control or like takes that artistry out of you or like that soul out of you, and that's what people call selling your soul, where it's just like you're selling your heart for the money. And that's like and it's sad because some people jump at those opportunities because it's so hard to make money in music nowadays. But it's just like then you end up losing the whole spirit and like the whole creativity behind the engine. So it's like being that solo entrepreneur, having that business mindset when you're doing solo music and like, or even as a band, you know, if you're doing this thing as a band or as a musician, I should say, as a freelance musician,
Yeah.
it's like you need to treat it as like an actual job and like, you know, be hard on yourself, you know, like numbers, taxes, all these things. It's like treat it like an actual business, you know, make an
Yeah,
LLC.
man.
Like these are things that like a lot of people don't think of.
Incorporate yourself.
Yes, for
Yeah.
real. It's like, it's a very big thing, especially if you're trying to do it full time. It's like, if you're trying to make $50,000, $100,000 a year off of music, like you can do that, but you also have to pay taxes on that money. So it's like, if you don't have the structure in the back end to be able to make that happen, like you're going to fuck yourself over in so many different ways. And then it's going to like, that whole side of it can totally demotivate you from like making music altogether. It's like, that's too much work.
Yeah,
It's
man.
like, but you need to have both if you want to be successful nowadays.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And be able to promote yourself and the whole package.
Yeah.
But you know, it doesn't have to be as daunting as it seems. You know, it's like once you get rolling on it, once you get excited about it, it's not going to be like, oh, here's a block of information and everything that I need to have in order to be a successful entrepreneur and musician. Boom. If I just sit down and do this all right now, it's all going to be taken care of. It's like, just get started and you'll learn shit along the way. Like
100%.
I'm sure you're in the same boat. Like I'm always learning something new about better ways to do. I mean, you mentioned taxes, or like, just any aspect of the business, invoicing, communication, like my EPK, how I'm presenting myself to people when I'm reaching out, in addition to everything on the artist side, you know.
Yeah, for
always
sure.
honing yourself as an artist. It's an ever changing sculpture in the works, you know, just chipping
sure.
away at that. So
Yeah, man. And I feel like all the best artists have that about them. They're always innovating. They're always learning. They're always getting better. And it's just like the people that kick their feet up, they don't succeed. It's like if you're not innovating and like making yourself, becoming a better version of yourself is really kind of like, to lack of a better term, that's like what really makes the longevity of an artist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like the reason why you've been doing this for 20 years. It's like because you've consistently gotten better at what you do, and you're still doing that today, which is crazy, man. And I want to go into when you were starting your own official band. So you started a band in 2012, is that right?
Yeah, I'd say probably about that. So I started writing songs with a friend of mine, Lucas Roth, and pretty much right at the tail end of high school. And we just like, I don't know, we had this like creative burst. We had jammed with each other a few times before in high school. Like we were friends, you know? But I remember I played a solo acoustic little showcase at a record store when those were still around. Awesome record store called Hoodlums in Tempe. And they had like a little singer-songwriter showcase thing. Played that. He'd come out and watched. And so we just kind of connected, started writing songs. And we had no idea how to do any of it, you know, like let alone collaborate on writing music. We had no idea how to book shows, put together a band. But eventually we brought in Lucas's friend from, was it middle school? Rocky Yanez, and he was a drummer, kind of made a 3-piece. We started doing open mics as a 3-piece, which was ridiculous. Like people generally don't do that shit. And we were always like bringing all of our instruments. So I could just like see like people's eyes rolling, like, goddamn. It's like, we don't know what we're doing, you know, like we're starting from the very bottom. Like we don't know anybody in the music industry. I mean, Lucas had his older brother and some of his friends like kind of did some stuff, but yeah, it was great though, you know, like not having any clue what we were doing and just learning by trial and error, meeting people, totally just bombing on stage sometimes, and then you'd have those moments that would pick you back up and just get a little more wind in your sails. And it was a great time. And so we grew that into eventually a 4-piece when we did bring Lucas's brother in. And that was right around the time when we started calling ourselves officially Sunset Voodoo. And how I was telling you on my way over here, you know, I've played some gigs in this area. Did you ever go to the Rogue Bar? It's now what is it called, like Blue Buddha or something like that. On it's right there on Fillmore and Scottsdale Road.
Oh, the coffee shop?
Is it a coffee shop?
Like the Blue Buddha
Yeah.
Collective or something like that?
Yeah.
I think it's like a yoga coffee shop now or something like that.
Yeah, that used to be called the Rogue Bar.
Oh, okay.
And it was great live music spot. A lot of people cut their teeth there. You know, it was just a rowdy, loud, fun, almost kind of punk rock, but not like, you know, in an intimidating way type bar. So we played a bunch of shows there, and yeah, we ended up putting out a couple EPs, some music videos. We did a festival called Apache Lake Music Festival a few times. We did a few smaller run tours, but ultimately just kind of learned how to do it all together, you know, and from scratch. We had obviously some help along the way, but you know, this was my project. Not my project, our project, but the project I was 100% invested in throughout college and a little bit post-college. And it ended up being kind of my capstone project in a sense, because I went to ASU for entrepreneurship, and I just started applying everything I was learning from business school to the band. And I was also doing like some art elective classes and different things. But you know, I had a couple internships. I'd interned with 80/20 Records, Fervor Records, 97.9, the radio station. And I just wanted to kind of get my hands in everything, you know, kind of get a full view of how the music industry worked. And then, yeah, post-graduation, I got to book some music for Shady Park.
Classic.
Yeah. And that was back when they were kind of doing a little bit of both, you know, the electronic and the live band situation. So I got to learn even more there, and obviously booked Voodoo when I could. But yeah, we did a lot of really fun stuff. And, you know, we never really had a formal, like, hey, we're going on a hiatus, but we ended up playing our last show essentially with, you know, the core members with Something Like Seduction back in 2018.
Esteban.
And yeah, shout out to Esteban. And we still have a bunch of music that we haven't released yet. So I'm hoping that one of these days we'll get some of it out.
You have to, bro.
Yeah,
sure.
man. Yeah, it was good stuff. So
Dude, that's so cool. I mean, that was like your first real like endeavor for real into this stuff, because you guys went on tour, you guys were playing on, you know, across the country. So it's like you guys were doing the thing for real.
Yeah.
So I do want to kind of touch on those internships that you had, those opportunities, because it's almost like that's in the same way that you were using your ASU experience and incorporating into the band. It's like you were able to kind of get a peek behind the industry curtain in a way. So you were able to kind of see what goes behind the scenes of like booking and promotion and marketing and things like that are outside of the creative part of the band, which I feel like is super important to you, because you were able to take all of those things from not only school, but then those internships and seeing how they work things at the radio station directly into not only the band, but then later on into your solo career. Which is so sick that you had that experience, man. It's like it's almost like you just like tripled down on like, I'm going to be in the music industry.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's just like, whatever it takes, I will be in the industry.
Dude, I was just afraid of doing anything else, man. I kind of just like, it was, I don't know. It was just maybe the easy decision, but it's hard as shit.
For sure.
It's still a struggle, you know, to adapt with the times, because it's just so rapidly evolving. And with like, say the record, maybe a little bit less so with the radio station, but with the record labels, you could still be very creative. And like, I got to get a look at how I was listening to another podcast about how like sometimes musicians get stuck thinking like, oh, if I get too much into the business end of things, it's going to be at the expense of my creativity. And like, business is completely separate from creativity and being an artist and songwriting. And it's not, it doesn't have
Right.
to be like, figuring out a great marketing plan and a brand and a rollout for, a song, a record, whatever, that takes an immense amount of creativity.
For sure.
And, yes, it is maybe slightly a little bit more analytical than say, jamming in a room with a bunch of guys and just kind of letting loose or whatever. But like, for the 2 music videos I did with Chase, like we put a lot of creative pre-production into that and figuring out wardrobes and all, everything that went into the videos. I had to figure out how that was going to coincide with like the artwork and how that was going to kind of feed into the release of the whole record. Some of the maybe like micro influencers or local companies that I really liked that kind of resonated with my message and my brand and the music, how I was going to involve them, the venue that I did it at. Like these are all decisions that like, yeah, if you could just throw a dart at the wall and do whatever, it's probably not going to work out that great for you. So you like, if you put the time and the creative energy into like figuring out a storyline that weaves everything together and do it in a way that makes sense for the business, which is just being able to capture and maintain people's attention, that's tied into the whole artistry of it as well. So
Absolutely.
I got to see that with both record labels. Obviously, I learned a lot of just like, okay, this is how, to upload this, upload that. Kind of some of the more mundane tasks that I would have figured out anyways. But what I really got out of it was seeing that collaborative and artistic and creative side of the music industry, and the business and how it worked. With the radio station, that was a little bit more like cut and dry. Like I was doing, I really just wanted to get close to big artists doing that one, and also be able to talk to the president of the radio station and like ask him questions. And I literally, interned all summer pretty much for one opportunity to get to talk to the president of the company. And he let me come in one day and I got like 15 or 20 minutes with him, and I got to show him my videos and the music that Sunset Voodoo was making and just ask him questions. And like doing that was worth being able to talk to him finally, But there's all sorts of little things you learn about that I still don't like totally understand, don't really remember. I don't need to learn and like have an expert view on every last little thing, but you pick up and you soak up what resonates with you along the way, and what I thought was going to be important for me in the long run. So
Absolutely, man. And I like the way that you said where it's almost like you create like a storyline. Because that's like a way to weave like business into the creative. Because it's like being creative with your business.
Yeah.
It's like making it like a storyline. So it's not like it's just like, well, here's the song. It's like the rollout and like the marketing behind it and like who you're gonna have affiliated, what's the video gonna look like, having these things like going into that pre-production, I guess, of like the song and almost treating it like a business, in that sense too, where it's just like this is like your newest product. You know what I'm saying? Like, are you just gonna put the product on the floor and hope people buy it, or are you gonna make advertisements for it? Are you gonna promote it? Are you going to try to bring attention to this thing? And why do people need this thing? Like it's almost like if you treat it like that, you completely shift like the mindset of just like the business itself, where it's like, it's almost becomes exciting, where it's like, how can I make this storyline? Like put a bow on it, really, is like what you have to do. And I think that's super important. And I think that's something that you do very well now as a solo artist. And that's of course, bro. And I want to get into that, like kind of transitioning out of Voodoo and going into your own solo career as Joey Gutos. Because that was in 2019, you kind of decided to officially start
Yeah.
doing that?
Yeah. Well, I've always been writing songs for the most part on my acoustic guitar, just kind of alone in my room.
Yeah.
And once Voodoo was kind of coming to an indefinite end, I was like, well, I could either try and start another band, which I to be honest didn't have the fuel in the tank to do at that
Yeah.
time, and maybe I was a little bit jaded from, and not saying that it was this horrible blow up breakdown, but you put your heart and soul into something that's kind of coming into an end, it has an effect on you, and so maybe I put up a little bit of a wall around myself and felt the need to kind of prove that okay. I took a step back and tried, you know, writing a song again. And initially I was like, I don't know how to write a song without somebody else, because I've been writing them with Lucas for so long in my band.
Right.
I was like, man, I need to kind of reevaluate like who I am as an artist and, just really get down to the basics again and start writing
Yeah.
as much as possible. So I did that and also really doubled down on recording, which was great. I always loved recording, but I never really took it as seriously as I should have. Like just kind of learn the basics enough to get me by and make a scratch recording, but I wanted to actually get better at it. So as I'm writing, I can plug these different ideas in and not be hindered by my lack of experience there.
Yeah.
So I'd say the beginning of the solo experience was like, okay, getting back down to writing on the acoustic guitar, getting better at the recording process, and just honestly like trying to figure out who I was as a person and communicating that. So that was a great outlet for me, and it ended up being something I wasn't even really planning on releasing anything as like, it wasn't like one day I was like, I'm going to be a solo artist. It was like, I'd spent a lot of time thinking about different band names and whether I should be like a Tame Impala type thing where
Yeah.
Tame Impala is just Kevin Parker,
Right. He just has a live band with him, right?
Yeah. But the name sounds like it's a band or whatever, but
Right.
I couldn't think of anything that resonated. So I was just like, F it. I'm just going to be Joey Gutos, just going to be myself. And so I put up my first song in 2020 on, what was it, April something? But it was after a couple weeks after lockdown started, and I'd been holding on to it for a little while. And I was like, you know what? This is exactly what I need to reconnect with people right now. And I don't know, just give some beauty to the world in a time when it was just kind of bleak.
Yeah.
And so that had also been a song that was featured in my friend's documentary about the Arizona Trail. His name is Dylan Harris, and he's always been like very nature oriented and just outdoor adventure. So he'd hit me up. He's like, dude, I would love to like have a song of yours in this, this traveling adventure, but also one that's about Arizona, home state. Like, hell yeah, that's perfect, right up my alley. So I just started with, from A to Z, everything that I need. It was kind of my ode to Arizona and, other things. But kind of from there, it like gave me the confidence to be like, okay, like people are responding to this and let's just keep it going. So, I don't know where it's going to head from here. I'm not saying like I always want to be solo. One thing that's been great, I'd say in the last year, is I've been playing with like the kind of the same core group of guys in my band, even though it's still kind of a solo project. For a while, I was starting to get like really it's lonesome kind of being a solo act, especially with just the acoustic guitar. And, I'm gigging 4 or 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
I was like, man, it's time to like get back and be musically communicating with people and also to share just a vibe with one another, not just be alone in a corner somewhere on a stage. So now we're starting to kind of like collaborate a little bit more musically too. Even though I'm kind of like writing most of the songs, but it'll just be maybe an acoustic demo and I'll bring it to them and we'll flesh out all the instrumentation. And so I'm excited for where things are at right now.
Absolutely, man. And it's
yeah,
cool that you were able to find that outlet because it sounds like, just by the way you're explaining it, is like you were just trying to find something to fuel that fire again. Because
yeah.
Sunset Voodoo, or was it Voodoo Sunset or Sunset Voodoo?
Sunset Voodoo.
Sunset Voodoo was like your baby, like, and that's what you were putting all your energy into, and that was really fueling your fire in music. So it's like when that was gone, it was just like, who am I? You know what I'm saying? Like trying
Yeah.
to find yourself. So it's cool that it took you to get to that point to realize like I'm all I need. You know what I'm saying? And it's like kind of coming back to self and having that self-confidence and doubling down on you again and remembering that like you're doing this because you love it. You're not doing it because your friends loved it. So, and it's just like it's cool that you were able to figure that out and like double down on yourself, start recording yourself, be more conscious about these things, and not feel like you need everyone else to like for you to make music. And that's, I think, super important. And now being able to be at a point where you can work with other musicians that don't have that super ego where it's like, no, we're not your group. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's cool that they're willing to play that like secondary role. It's like, because you need that. It's like, you need that. You can't all be the front man. So it's like, they know you're the guy and we're going to supplement you and we're here to play with you. And I'm sure, you compensate them and they do it like that. And it's like having that relationship, that working relationship, but also creative relationship as a solo artist, I think is super huge. So it's like totally allows you to grow, allows you to build, and also have that camaraderie. So it doesn't feel like that mundane, like loneliness of like being a solo artist. I'm sure that like really helps to have that group around you, even though you're not a band,
Yeah, man. And it's like, it's still kind of a weird concept to think about, like having a solo career. Like even when I was younger, I never liked the concept of going solo, except for people that were just incredibly expressive, like David Bowie.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
man, David Bowie seems like a band all wrapped into one guy,
Yeah.
But like when you'd see bands break up and then the singer would go solo or
Like
whatever.
Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Justin Timberlake. God, in sync.
Dude, that's you, bro.
Yeah.
You're JT, dog.
Bye, bands.
Exactly, bro. But it's so cool though. Like you really like found that self, bro. Because I feel like that's like at the core, like that's who you are. Like you are Joey Gutos. You know what I mean? So it's like it's cool that now like all that energy that you have for music can go into that, and you don't have to worry about like someone ever killing it. Like if you want it to die, you can kill it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, but that's it. Like if you want it to live, all you got to do is just keep doing what you're doing. It's
That's
like
true, man.
just building it up. So I'm so glad to see that, man. And
Appreciate it.
of course, bro. So going into something that stood out to me, I was doing research and stuff, and I mean, it's stood out to me since I've met you. But your music videos, they're always eccentric and like cinematic, and like it's always like a visual thing to it. And it kind of to tie it back to what we were talking about earlier, like the early MTV days. It's almost like it almost seems like the influence of music videos comes through in your solo music videos, where it's like you do care about story, you do care about like what the shots look like, and like this is probably something you work with the directors like Esteban and Chase on, but it's like those videos end up being like creating identities for the songs, like Sand to Snow.
Yeah.
That just recently came out, and you shot that video with Chase, and I was watching it, and there was this part that's about 3/4 of the way where the faces change,
Yeah.
and it's like this like weird like AI kind of looking thing, and that is so cool. Like that part is like there's not too much going on musically, but visually like that is such a cool part of the video that it's like it's almost like that part like I will like when I hear Sand to Snow, like that's the part I'm gonna like think of in a way, and like all the transitions and stuff like that video is just like it definitely gave that song an identity, and I feel like that's something. Do you do that intentionally because you were influenced back in the day from like music videos like that, or like is that something you did intentionally? Or
Well, I'm glad you made that connection of like when you think of Sand to Snow, like you think of that part. 'Cause that's awesome, man. I wasn't sure how we were. And to answer your question, it wasn't intentional from the get-go, but the song, so the music that's going on there, like the weird trippy
Yeah.
stuff that's happening, that that version of the song was how it was originally written. It wasn't like we had the song and we were like, oh, let's make let's go back and put this trippy interlude in so we can do it for the music video type thing. You know, it was like we wanted to make this song the way it was, and then the music video came from there. So I guess, you know, in reference back to our point about tying a storyline through the business and the artistic portion of things, I've always, you know, every now and then while you're writing a song, you might think, oh, that could be a cool music video or whatever. But I'd never like write a song for the intention of a business story and a marketing plan, you know? So that, you know, once that story or that the story of the song itself, the recording was done, we're like, okay, how can we communicate this visually? And I have always been inspired by nature. That's a huge part of my brand. This shirt I'm wearing, River, that was actually a company I started with Esteban back in the day. It's kind of just been sleeping, but I feel it making a presence again. But, you know, just like a lot of nature imagery has always woven its way into the music. So we knew we needed to do it out in the dunes and up in Mogollon Rim. Like those were the two spots. And as far as like me having an exact idea of like what shots to do, man, Chase really knows what he's doing. And like when we did Where's She At, that was the first video we worked on together. I'd never really worked with someone who had the ability to bring that big of a crew. We had like 15 people on that shoot, like people gaffing and doing lights and running around, assistant directors. Like it was awesome. It was like stepping onto a Hollywood, you know, movie scene or something. At least that's what it seemed like in my head. It was funny, like by the end of the video, some people that were working on the video didn't even know that I was the artist that we were making the video for, because I didn't have any. I do have some performance shots in like that office, but that was the second day of the shoot. The first day was all at that house, and it was just an Airbnb, and it was mainly getting all those party shots and the narrative portion of it. So it wasn't necessarily clear that I was the artist. And it was like funny by the end, they're like, oh, this is your song?
It's like, yeah.
But I remember like on that shoot, like suggesting things to Chase the way I've done in the past with other directors, where we're kind of just flying by the seat of our pants, be like, oh, what if we tried this here? What if we tried that there? And Chase would politely be like, yeah, if we have time at the end or whatever. But it's like, man, he had all that, all the shots figured out and an exact schedule for it. He had an assistant director, Hannah, who's a badass, making sure everything was on time, people were where they needed to be. And, you know, if by the end we had time, you know, maybe we could get a few things. But I mean, these were like 8-hour shoots.
Yeah.
And especially for the Sand of Snow one, we had a smaller crew and a little bit more, it felt like we had more kind of time and space on our hands. But, you know, I was at that point kind of a supplement to Chase's mind as a director, and just kind of making sure that, okay, like, yeah, this is solid, you know, like making sure that he's stoked about it so he can see that I'm stoked about it. But coming up with the concepts, that was something that I would say that we collaborated on with pretty well. You know, Sand of Snow, when it gets to that interlude portion, originally we wanted to do something with claymation, because one of my favorite music videos of all time is Ready Able. That's the name of the song by the band Grizzly Bear.
Okay.
If you haven't seen that,
I haven't.
Check it out.
I will after this for sure.
Incredible, man. That came out when I was in high school, I think. Yeah, for sure. And that would be like my go-to. You know, like when you're that age, you all get together with your buddies or like some new people you're hanging out with, and the music videos start coming around. It's like, oh, wait till we get here, you know, I'm gonna blow your guys' mind.
Yeah.
That was my go-to. And it's all claymation. So we wanted to do something with that. Didn't really work out. And the AI stuff just kind of happened to be popping up at the right time. So we went with that and just wanted to kind of create this transformation from the sand to the snow, from that piece of the storyline into the, you know, I guess there's somewhat of a resolution at the end. but we just kind of wanted to like create a little bit of creative chaos and
Yeah.
see what happened with it. So I'm
Yeah.
glad it turned out cool, man. You know, like
It
we
did.
thought it was cool, but I'm glad you think it's cool. And
For sure,
other
dude. I
people
think it's
have.
very cool. Yeah. And if you haven't seen it, go check out Santa Snow by Joey Gutos on YouTube. I'll put the link right here.
Do it.
But yeah, dude. And I love that you kind of went into depth working with Chase, because Chase is a genius, bro. And
Oh,
it's crazy because like I didn't know too much about his process until, you know, meeting him, and because he was working with this modern, and I had only like heard his name thrown around a couple times and seen some videos like, oh yeah, that's sick, that looks great. But then like when I met him, and like I actually went on set with him one time and I did some behind the scenes stuff, it's like that's exactly right. Like he has like full production crew. It's like, and people are there, like there's call times, and it's like this is a set. You know, this is not just like a, hey, show up at 7, we're gonna start shooting at 7:30. It's like 2 people there, you know, like one light on a tripod type deal. It's like this is full scale, and it's like at this level, like it's almost like you need to have that like he's at his point and you're at your point. It's like you guys are like, you meet in the middle. It's like your production value meets his production value. You know, it's like the standard that you hold yourself to as well. Like you want to go that route, because that's like if you went like I mean, you could make a bunch of stuff look great on an iPhone now, but it's like if you like did like a shitty iPhone video, then right next to like all these cinematic videos, it's like it's not on brand. So it's like it's almost like having someone of that level that holds themselves to that level of quality just makes sense for your brand of Joey Gutos as well. So I think you guys fit really well together, because you have like a definite like artist, like you're an artist, bro. It's like, it's cool, bro. It's cool to see it. Like
Thanks, bro.
You're very marketable. You write great music. You sound great, man. So it's like to be able to kind of put that bow on it, like with the music videos and like on that cinematic level where it looks like it was done in like Hollywood type studio. Like that's where you need to be. So man, shout out Chase, man, for being that guy, bro.
Yeah, appreciate the hell out of Chase. And you know, maybe if I was making, who knows, maybe I will film my next video on a camcorder, but it has to fit with the song. And I knew that I needed to get those sweeping landscape views for a song like Santa Snow. You know, there's no way around it. So I'm glad I waited. And, you know, sometimes I wait a little bit too long to my detriment. And it's something, you know, that is just an ongoing like battle to get over like the perfectionist side of things. But sometimes great things are really worth waiting for. And yeah, I'm glad we waited for that one. So
how long ago did you write Santa Snow?
Bro, that was actually, so going back to my guitar teacher, that the early incarnation of that song, maybe like the first half of it, was kind of written on my guitar when I was like 15.
Jesus.
And
that's really letting him marinate.
Yeah, dude.
10
totally
years.
Different lyrics. And I don't know, it was just always one of my favorite things I had written. I did it in like an alternate tuning. And you know, I was always afraid to share, even though I shared those creations with other people that went to Bob. I was always afraid to share them with other people. And kind of right around when I was starting, you know, that 2019 timeframe, 2018, that jam kind of came out one day when I was, I started working with my looper pedal.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, I remember this chord progression. And it's just it's got like, even though it's very kind of majory, it's got a little bit of an exotic edge with it's almost like a Phrygian thing, but it's just kind of, you can get a little weird with it. So I kind of just resurrected it and started rewriting it. And so I finished the final version of that song though, probably like 3.5 or 4 years ago. Damn. So yeah, it's been a minute, but it's always been one of my favorites.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, it's almost like you knew, like, I gotta hold this close because this is like this is one that means a lot to me. So it's like when I do release it, I want to make sure it's right.
Yeah,
it's like that seems like what it was.
Yeah, and it kind of felt like it was representative to me, like a transformation, you know, from kind of like a, you know, maybe adolescence to adulthood, but more so like from a struggling in terms of like, who am I as an artist, to kind of being a little bit more confident and assure that, okay, this is me,
Yeah.
putting my stamp, Joey Gutos right here.
Yeah, man. No, you're definitely doing that for sure, especially with staples like Sand of Snow. I feel like that's definitely one that's like resonating and getting good response so far. It seems like, but with music videos on that topic, it's kind of a hot topic in music now, especially with independent artists. Music videos, obviously, they don't get the same attention that they used to get back in the days. So therefore, people put a lot less importance on them. They seem, and at this point, people are to the point where they say no music videos, waste of money, waste of time. And specifically, if they're independent artists, they're like, why would we spend money on music videos? They're not even getting any views. They're not pushing the needle, whatever. And yeah, cool. But I think it like, when you do have that element, it like creates a personality for the songs. And I think that's kind of just the whole thing about music video that I've always talked about, just in this conversation, where it's just like these songs, like the music videos create stories for the songs. So it's like they attach like your mind to that song, like the video is attached to the song or whatever. So it's like when you don't have those visuals, you miss out on that potential connection. Like when I hear a song, I might not visualize something. If I do, maybe it's gone tomorrow if I don't hear that song every day. But if I can hear a song one time and with a video and see a part like that part with the faces, and immediately, like, if I ever hear that song again, like, I immediately have the visual of the video. So it's like, do you find yourself kind of teetering that line of like music videos aren't important or they are, or like, I mean, because it seems like you think they are important still, and I'm glad that you do, because we need to keep that vision alive.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I definitely do. I see why people think they aren't 100%, like especially in the short term. It's like, man, after a certain amount of time, it's like, okay, well, what's working, what isn't, what's the algorithm gonna like, what's gonna get my song out there? But like you said, just getting the song out there isn't everything, unless they are like absolutely die hard in love with it, just resonates with them. And that's a beautiful thing, but it's much more rare. Whereas if you have that visual identity, that's something that just makes it more sticky. It just sticks around longer. And I don't know, it's just got to be a combination of both for sure. Like, I tried to do a decent amount of reels and like behind the scenes stuff for the music video and live performances. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the lip syncing craze of, like putting out a new piece of music, because I get it in the sense like, okay, now you can make a bunch of mini music videos on your own time and shoot them in these different locations. You give a bunch of different contexts, and maybe one will resonate. But I don't get, like, I see some artists that will take their same song and do it in the same pretty much location 50 times, lip syncing it, and it works and it gets traction. So, I'm not like downing on it or bitching about it. I don't get why it works, really, and I'm sure it doesn't for everybody, but I've seen it work for some people. I'm just like, why would you want to see the same artist do the same song and lip sync it and not even like have anything cool going on with the story or like that? That really feels like a numbers game, I guess. If you push it enough and just beat it down people's brains. I guess I just think about it from like, and maybe this is the problem, is I'm always thinking about, if I'm the person watching what I'm doing, am I gonna get like tired and annoyed of this shit? And I'm like, I would immediately.
Right.
So I would much rather have somebody. The other thing is, with a music video, not only with real culture now, you could literally probably, if you have enough going on in the video, break down 3 different frames of vertical reels for the entire thing. Now you're going to have something interesting happening in every one of those frames. frames, meaning just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
the portrait.
one,
Yeah, yeah.
two, three.
Mm-hmm.
For the whole thing, probably not. But you have an opportunity to now, okay, say your music video is 3 minutes long, cut that up into 15 seconds. Um, don't just think about it with like, okay, it's just got to be the focus on me. Like maybe you like switch around the frames and like you got a lot of content to work with for a music video.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, we just have this one piece of content. It's like, no, that's a million different pieces.
Yeah.
Depending how you look at it. And you can do, I do like the remix culture that's going on with social media and the duet. I still haven't really gotten around to it too much myself. I'd like to. But the other thing at the end of the day, I wanted to have some longer form, not even, I don't even want to look at it as content. I want it to be like pieces of art that represent those songs, and that as a whole, when I put out this record, this EP, people have something to really kind of sink into for a bit. They can go look
Yeah.
at my social media and, you know, I don't post as much as I used to, as much as I should. And, you know, you can kind of go back into my older stuff and like, I try and showcase like what I do on a day-to-day basis or whatever. But at the end of the day, I want to funnel that into the art, and a lot of that kind of attention is where I have it on the music videos, on my YouTube page, the longer form content. Like, let's hang out a while, you know, like
For sure.
come join the campfire. Don't just kind of look through the window as you're walking by.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it's almost like you're doing that with intention. Like you're not necessarily just flooding the streets with a bunch of short form content that's like meaningless. It's like you're trying to make like this long form content that means a lot, you know, to you and also to the song and to you as an artist, like as like the brand Joey Gutos. So like fans of yours know that like that's like you, who you are. But I think there is something to be said about kind of having that balance of like being in touch with like social media stuff, like doing reels, doing behind the scenes stuff, cutting up that long form content into short form content, because it's like that's where majority of people are consuming nowadays. It's like the TikTok, the Instagram, stuff like that. So it's almost like it almost feels like those people that you're talking about, like doing like lip syncs, stuff like that, like they're just trying to like utilize that that short form content world to like almost use it as if it was music videos and just like that, where it's like they're not taking the time to shoot full scale music videos. They're doing like one take videos on a gimbal or on a tripod or something, posting it up, and it's working. But that's just because that's like what people are consuming. And it's like, it's almost like there's an artist, have you heard of Anise?
I don't think so.
So there's an artist that goes by the name of Anise, and he has a song that blew up like crazy over the last, like, I think it was probably about like 8 months ago, and it was called Sun and Moon. And the reason why it blew up was because on TikTok and Instagram for like months and months and months beforehand, he was pushing short form content of him singing in his car or like doing these things outside, singing the song. And almost like before the song was even out, he was pushing this stuff, and these videos are going viral because they're like, what is this song? What is this song? Oh, it's coming out. It's coming out. It's coming out. He built up all this hype where to the point where it's like before that started happening, this dude was like nobody knew who he was really. It was like he was more of like a rapper guy, and he wasn't doing much singing. But it's almost like that, like almost being able to figure that out and like work it out ended up blowing him up, and like he ended up going on a full scale tour after that, and like now he's, you know, over 1 million followers, and just like so many, it's crazy though, like how like that world, like if you figure it out, and like I, you know, still like there's things that like I don't know about that world and like the reels culture and stuff, then I still try to like keep up with. But it's like some people really figure that shit out and it works for them. But it's like something to be said still about like having that long form content that's more digestible in the long term, where it's not just like 20 seconds at a time of like you in your car singing the song, you know. It's like,
yeah. And I mean, man, like I want to get to the point, like whenever people ask me about I don't know, like if I have conversations about making money or being successful or having a team or management or label, this and that, it's like that guy now, he has all access to all resources to make that long form content and to make it really incredible. You know, he's
Yeah.
probably got the budget now. He's probably got the team behind him, and he just had to sacrifice maybe some of his like upfront, like, okay, this is what I want to be doing right now, but could I do it way bigger and better than I could ever imagine if I just do this other thing for now leading up to it?
Yeah.
And I totally get that, you know, and I think that's important. I think it's just like finding the crossroads. Okay, okay, this is what's working for people, so I can kind of use that as my blueprint and my guide. This is what I have to do in order to get to that level, and this is what I like doing, and finding a marriage kind of between all those. It's like, how long can you do something even if it is like working for other people and it's like the thing to do? How long can you do that thing if you're doing it in ways that you're like, God damn, I got to do this again today? You know, it's like you got to find something that is it goes along with your brand, but that like you really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So that you can do it over and over again, and it doesn't feel like such a chore and a job. You know, you can still apply it in that same way that other people who are having success are applying it, but not trying to just copy something verbatim just because that's working. It's like, if that's not you, then that's not going to come across to your audience anyways. So not only are you going to hate it, but your audience probably isn't going to really think it's
right
genuine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
that's a very good point that you bring up. It's almost like the people that are doing that, it's like they're doing it with intention as well. Like that's like, for them, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make sense for everybody. And I think that's a very good point that you bring up, where because it's a trend, it's easy to be like, well, they did it and they blew up. Why can't I do it and I blow up?
Yeah.
It's like, it just doesn't work like that, especially if it doesn't make sense for you and your brand. It's like everyone kind of has to find their niche and also make it make sense in a way. And I think that's the best way to put it, where it's just like, if it doesn't feel like you're having a good time doing it, it feels like work, feels mundane, it feels like you have to do it, then you should probably figure out something else.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, yeah, for sure, dude. And I
Right.
totally relate to that.
Bro, I mean, you found this podcast and you've been doing all sorts of stuff with music and videos, and like, you know, on one end of things, it's like, yeah, you could do a podcast, and just because like that's what other people are doing, but like you found that, yeah, podcasts are great and people are consuming it, but like we talked before we got on here and did this, like you're having fun with it. You're also going about it smart. You're having not like just like always having to feel like you're running out of options or whatever. You already got kind of things in the bag. I mean, it looks great. Like, yeah,
Thank you,
like
bro.
absolutely, man.
Yeah, and it's that's exactly what it is, man. It's like I came into it with like, yes, I wanted to have a podcast to be able to like be on this platform, but at the same time, I didn't want to make a podcast just for sake of having a podcast.
Yeah.
And it's just like, having a podcast is cool, but you also have to have like intention behind it. I feel like, at least for me, 'cause some people start podcasts and they just do it like, you know, seat of their pants, just like, hey, show up, we're just gonna chill for 2 hours, whatever. But it's just like, yeah, cool, that works for some people. But it's just like, I don't know, that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want that. I didn't want people to look at this and be like, it's just another podcast. It's some bullshit. It's like, no, this is actual, like, there's intention behind this. And it's like, I think that's like, with any creative endeavor, I think there always needs to be that like intention behind
Yeah.
it, and like that real, like, genuine heart and passion behind it. Otherwise, people are going to see right through it. And it's just like, it's not going to be there's not going to be any longevity in it. It's going to be hard to keep up because you don't have the passion. And it's like, you're going to feel like it's work. And it's like, not to say that it's not work, you know, it is work. It is, you know,
For
like I was
sure.
telling you, it's like 30 hours plus editing on every episode, which is crazy to do
Yeah,
everything
man.
solo. But it's just like, I love it. And I'm not going to like not do it because it takes so long. I'm going, like, that excites me. It's like, I get to do this. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, man. I feel like it's cool that, like, I'm glad that you brought that up. I appreciate you, man. Cause it's like, I feel like we can relate on that same note, where it's like the same passion that I put into like this stuff and the stuff that I do, you clearly put in the stuff that you do. So it's like, you're like a perfect candidate. Like, you're the type of people that I'd love to have on this podcast, because it's like you inspire other people to do what they love to do. So I'm thank you for this, man. It's been,
Absolutely, bro.
for sure, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me a part of it. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, this is a very, um, it's well put together from the start. And, like I was saying, I was watching some of the other episodes, and it's just like the conversations are genuine. And, like sometimes I've done, not so much podcasts, but like I'll do like, interviews or whatever. It's like just the most basic questions and shit. And it just feels like, man, what is the point of this? Like,
Yeah, you're like, what
but
is this, guys?
yeah. But like, we're also just hanging out and having a good time too.
Right.
So it's like a good mix of everything.
For sure. And yeah, it's like to anybody doing that, cool. Like do your thing. Yeah, whatever. It's like if you love doing it, by all means. It's like, yeah, cool. But I just didn't want that for my
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm glad that you can recognize that it's something a little different. We're doing things a little different over on Mars.
On Mars, man.
Yeah, man, this has been great. I do want to talk about, performing, because that's something you do a lot. You said you do 4 or 5 shows a week. You're performing 20, 30 shows a month, which is crazy. Like, I feel like that's a lot. But at the same time, that's the mindset you need to have if you want to do this full time. And it's like, can you speak on like any type of like practices or like things that you kind of put into your routine to like make sure you're conditioned for that type of work on that level?
Yeah, man. Well, disclaimer, it's not 4 or 5 shows per week. It's, where it's like, it's on a big stage, and, you have, people, tickets and things like that. Like that's more of like the show experience where like you put a lot of time and effort into that stuff. I would say I am a full-time musician in the sense that I will get up and I can play a solo acoustic set. I can get up and do a duo thing. I can do a full band thing. I can accompany somebody else as a guitarist or a vocalist. I play music gigs 4 to 5 times a week.
There we go.
And so this is more of, because this is something that I need to start doing more, is like empowering other people that were just like me when I was younger to realize like you can be a full-time musician, not very easily, but it is something that is well within your grasp if you are a good musician and you work at your craft. There are more opportunities than ever, especially here in the Valley, to be playing out and performing and just expressing yourself musically. So I want to put that out there. Also, the conditioning and being able to do it on a consistent basis, for sure. I try and practice singing every day. One thing I definitely do, my morning routine is like the most important thing to me. And right when I get up, it's at least 20 minutes. And sometimes I'll do 10 minutes of just sitting there and writing if I'm inspired with a thought or whatever. Sometimes it's just 20 minutes on the clock of I just start playing and singing, saying whatever comes to my mind, and just starting my day off priming my creativity like that. And then if after that 20 minutes passes, I'm like on a roll and I'm like, oh, this is a song, I'm going to keep this going. I just keep it rolling. So that's how I try and start my day. Honestly, I think it's very much overlooked with musicians, and maybe it's just like the nature of like being a musician. You're not like on the clock per se. So I don't know. There's not as much of an emphasis on like that morning routine maybe. But once I found, starting the day creatively and then going into like an exercise routine, I'll hit the gym. That's like how I'm able to do this. Yeah. Like I cannot emphasize that enough, is like always starting the day something creatively, and then immediately after going into something that's like good for my like bodily health. Physical, so it's like the mind, the body, and then like the spirit is found within. So just like then from there, I'm going to be practicing new songs that I'm learning, reworking old songs, recording, doing my vocal exercises to make sure my vocal cords are, in shape.
Yeah.
Because I've damaged my voice before, where like I wasn't able to, my voice is like cracking, and it still does every now and then. It's like, I'm kind of past the point of embarrassment about it, because it's just like, I'm a singer, man. Like I get up and I'll sing 3 to 4 hours, 4 to 5 times a week. So like if you don't take care of your physical health, that's going to be an issue. And then same with, I've had like shoulder problems playing guitar too. Like when I wasn't being as active, like taking care of myself and getting into the gym, eating right. Like a lot goes into like having a healthy career as a musician. But it is 100% accomplishable for anybody that's out there thinking about getting into it. You can do it. The other aspect, obviously, having great relationships with people and treating people right and being kind and supportive. Because if you aren't those things, people aren't going to want to fucking play with you. They're not going to want to book you. And it's just, you're not going to be as inspired to be a part of the community that you're in. Working with other artists, working with venues, working with booking agents. So it's really taking care of yourself so you can take care of other people and provide them with the best art that you can provide them and the best expression as a musician as you possibly can.
Yeah, dude. I love that you have such a regimented mindset when it comes to this, because that's like, it goes back to us talking about treating this as a business. It's like, yeah, you're a full-time musician, so you don't necessarily have to be on the clock, but the fact that you make it a routine and have a routine and almost treat that creative time as meditation, that's really what it sounds like. Mm-hmm. So it's like using that time to be able to become like a little bit more like present with your mind, body, and spirit in the morning, and then going into physical work. It's like all these things, like this is like, you're like an athlete, like it's almost like you're treating this like a professional sport, which is how you should treat it. Because if you don't condition yourself, you're gonna run into issues where you're straining your vocal cords, you're fucking up your shoulder just by playing guitar. It's like, people don't think that you could fuck up your shoulder by playing guitar, but if you're playing guitar 4 or 5 times a week for 3 hours at a time, like you're gonna get some issues. You at least feel sore, So it's like I'm so glad that you take this this approach to it, because like that just shows me that like this is not something that you're doing just for fun. Like this is your job. This is a career for you. This is something that you take very seriously, and it's like, obviously that comes through when people see you, because like you perform very well, but it's like they don't see what all goes into that. Mm-hmm. So it's cool to be able to kind of get a peek behind the curtain and realize that's like, yeah, you can be like, you're telling them like, you can do this, but you have to want to do all these other things too, that like be willing to like almost change your life in a way. And it's like devote your life to the craft. And that's like in all aspects, mind, body, and soul. It's like it's like if you don't have those things, it's like it's harder to like have that longevity. Dude, it's so cool that like, 'cause I wanted to actually ask you about and if you do have any like meditation practices or routines or anything on top of like whatever you did to condition, but it sounds like you integrate everything together where it's just like it's all part of it.
Yeah, I need to get back into actually meditating, because that was usually, it'd be like 10 minutes writing. I was a little bit more regimented before. Like very precise, like 10 minutes writing, 10 minutes just guitar, 10 minutes silent meditation. But I kind of let the meditation fall to the wayside. But I think it was because I was getting a lot more out of the usually nowadays I sit down with the guitar, have the notebook and pen. I still do the analog way. Yeah. I like feeling the pen on the paper, man. Yes. It's just like a connection. For sure. And I also don't get distracted by having notifications pop up on my phone and shit. Yeah. My phone is pretty much on silent. I shouldn't admit this, but for a good majority of most days, because
good, man.
I'm there with it, so like I'll see when people are calling and need to get a hold of me. But when I'm writing or doing anything creative, even if it's some business stuff, like I can't be constantly distracted by that shit. So I try to like minimize it. It's almost like, what do you do in order to get this or to get to this spot? It's like more of what I don't do and what I try to keep away from me.
Like that.
But yeah, I on the meditation aspect, like I said, it's just like when I saw this great John Mayer interview with, I think, Zane Lowe, and he's like, man, I have to sit down and just grab the guitar, and he just starts immediately like, I'm looking at the car, he's like singing about what's going on around him and not being afraid to do that. And that is so meditative, because sometimes it's just like total gibberish and it's stupid, but sometimes, and more often than you might think, you end up surprising yourself with like something that not only sounds pretty, it's beautiful melody or whatever, but like the words just go right with it and just fit perfectly, rather than trying to sandwich like something I wrote, now I got to fit it to music. It's like it's all happening at once. And that's almost kind of like jamming when you're in a room with people and like shit just starts happening. It's like I don't know, like this synchronicity maybe, but just with yourself. And so I feel very meditative when I'm doing that. And like, even like I said, the hitting the gym, like that's a meditative thing too, man.
For sure.
You can get into it, and some people are really intense about it, and it's good to get that intensity, but it's also like good. You can get into flow state when you're doing that too. And like this morning, I was, coming up with different things I maybe wanted to talk about or whatever, but I was listening to new songs I'm working on in between sets. And like, I feel really creative when I'm doing like energetic activities. And yeah, man. So
yeah, I love that you have those routines, because it's like not only is it good for like your mental, but like physically, like that just gets like endorphins in, like you start to feel like your brain really like changes when you start to like have these things and like do these things on a consistent basis. Like a daily thing, it's like, because it's anybody can like have that practice one time a month or something like that, just because they like want to try to change themselves. But then like the consistency and like being on it every day type deals, and almost having that regiment, that's like super important, I think, for any creatives, really. It's like not just musicians. Man, it's so cool, bro. I loved it. I love to see this. It's like, this is every time I have a interview, it's like I always like when we're coming to like the end, I'm like, man, this is such a good conversation. Every single time. It's just like, man, this is such a good conversation. It's like I get inspired. It's like, man, I'm hoping that this inspired you a little bit.
Absolutely, man. It's got me missing, like I said, doing the live streams, and like, because just meeting new people, and or maybe just people that you're not as familiar with, and like picking their brains on things, like that's so cool that you get to do that.
Dude.
Just totally opening up your perspective. And but this has definitely inspired me, so I appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir, bro. So before we get into this live performance, Joey will be performing a live performance for today. This is super exciting. But before we get into that, man, there was one more thing I kind of wanted to touch on, is this what's moving forward? Is there you said you have some songs already in the works. You got do you have any more videos like in the works? Like, do you have any tour things going on? What's up?
Yeah, man, all the above.
Hell yeah.
Dude, I just got back from a 2-week road trip with my girlfriend, and shout out Jordan Ruditis putting up with my crazy ass and everything that this music has brought upon you. A lot of excitement, but also a lot of, God damn it, Joey.
She's on for the ride, though.
Yeah. But we started in Montana and just worked our way down and hit all the national parks. And I think it would be sick to do a tour of all the national parks, because they've got different like amphitheaters and event spaces, and maybe just like some bigger breweries or whatever that have a stage. But that would be so up my alley, because then I get to like explore too, and be on tour and be in front of some people. I mean, bro, there was so many different languages I heard all at once, like on the shuttles that would take you up to the top of a hike or whatever, and meeting people from Switzerland, and some people from Australia, a bunch of French people, like just like melting pots. We got an amazing country here, y'all. If you haven't been to any of the national parks, it's also only like $80 for an annual pass to all the national parks. Go whenever you want.
Damn.
We got some beautiful shit here, man. And so that's just one aspect of what I got kind of cooking in my head right now. But the more concrete stuff, I do have a number of singles. Just trying to weave that storyline through them all and figure that out. Video concepts in the works for sure. But what I've been pouring most of my time into is working on writing, and I have a lot of tunes that I just kind of need to sift through, and that's probably one of my biggest struggles as an artist is finishing the tunes. I love just like starting fresh and having that that spiritual touch with the universe, like creating something new. But it is work, man, bringing them to full fruition and figuring out the funding for, because I still, I like recording on my own, but I'm not near where I need to be as an engineer to really execute what I hear in my head as other people are. So I like to collaborate with engineers, and also having a room with the equipment necessary to capture the essence of the musicians I like to play with in my band. And I also like doing it in a creative way, because there's a lot of, there's some really good means to getting some good recordings made, but it's also cool to like experiment with different weird shit and bring in some different people who have different ideas of how to mic things up or to mix things. So right now I'm most focused on, I would say, bringing a lot of these songs that I'm writing kind of to full completion, so I could be like, okay, here's 50 songs I got right here. What's the next album? Which songs fit on the next album? Let's go full throttle into this and start focusing on, okay, how do we release these? What do we do videos for? How does a tour work with this? All the above. So yeah, I guess kind of just dipping my toes into different new things along the way. I finally got my like merch store up and running on my website, so that's exciting. I also love making merch, man. Like,
you design it all?
Yeah, I try to. I work with my buddy. His name's Jason Lean, and he's got a good eye for, because I'm always like, oh, let's do this extravagant thing. He's like, okay, we still have to like physically make this, bro. This isn't just like, it's like going up to the producer and saying, I want it to sound like a flock of swans swooping through a canyon while it's snowing, and there's a couple down at the bottom, and they're having a kiss, but it's a kiss goodbye, perhaps. It's like like trying to paint a picture of that and being like, okay, I want this to sound like maybe put some reverb here, and like being more specific with shit. So yeah, he kind of reins me in. It's like, okay, this is what we can actually
takes your vision
here.
Like,
yeah. But it's cool, man, because merchandise can also kind of give songs an identity too.
Totally.
That hat I gave you, that's a Where's She At hat. My song's called Where's She At, for those of you who don't know. And it's like, it's camo, so it's like kind of hidden. It's in black letters, and it's just like kind of cool little creative things. It's not the most brilliant thing in the world, but it's kind of cool,
Yeah, exactly.
You can kind of tie it in, but anyway, so that a whole bunch of shit.
Man, I mean, it's like, it sounds like we're just working on the next level of Joey Gutos, really. It's just like, because you I mean, your latest release was Sand to Snow, is that right? Yeah, so that was and this will kind of date this episode a little bit, so this won't be coming out till December, but when did that other song come out, Sand to Snow?
Sand to Snow was back in April. That was right before the EP release.
Okay,
so
cool. And then you don't have any hard dates set for anything coming up soon here that we could plug right now?
Well, the Where's She At remix will be up by the airing of this, for sure. And then the song that I'm about to play probably will be out. Okay, we'll see.
Nice, man. Hey, well, what song are you gonna be playing for us today?
This particular tune is called Are You In Control? And this is a little bit different of a vibe than some of my other stuff has been. Kind of a little bit darker, mysterious, and there's a really cool music video concept in the works. So
Are You In Control is the name of it?
Are You In Control, yeah.
Nice.
Or maybe are you in? Well, it's just a matter of the spelling, but are you in? And then parentheses control. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Like, are you in?
I love it, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, hell yes. Let's get into it. My fellow Martians, we're going to have Joey Gutos perform a song for us today. So give us a second to get set up and we'll get right to it. Hey, Martians, real quick. I appreciate you taking the time to listen or watch wherever you are in the world. Over the last few months, the Martian family has grown so much. I could not be more thankful for all of my guests and every single one of you who continue to tune in every single week. Subscribers, ratings, likes, and comments all help us grow here on Mars. And it would mean the world. If you haven't already, please go to onmarspod.com/subscribe to subscribe on YouTube. Like and leave a comment, rate us on Spotify. All this good stuff helps keep the engine running to inspire Martians all over the world. P.S. Follow us on Instagram @onmarspod. Okay, let's get back to it. All right, my fellow Martians, today on Mars, we have Joey Gutos performing Are You in Control?
Let's do it. Can you tell me, are you in control? Can you tell me, are you in control? Come on in, there's vacancy. Take me keys and your bed's on me. Someone set your mind at ease. You'll have everything you need. Fall asleep, some memory. Let your life be but a dream. Let your life be but a dream. But can you tell me, are you in control? Can you tell me, are you in control? Seem to think so. Just here on the dotted line. Your fingerprint will do just fine. Let me know everything that you desire. All I want is to show you a good time, and you never have to know if your secrets get told. Not noisy, hateful, but docile. Tame on the surface and not obliged. 'Cause I'm the one you least expect. That I don't your awareness. Upright with the thumbs that you require. It becomes just a part of the design. To fail our better judgment. But now we can't feel. Can you tell me, are you in control? Can you tell me, are you in control? See this. Well, can you tell me, are you in control? Can you tell me, are you in control? Oh, can you tell me, are you in control? Can you tell me, are you in control?
Woo. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Dude, that's an earworm, bro. It's like by like the second chorus, I was like singing along with you, bro.
Dude.
I love it, dude.
Thanks, brother.
Great song, dude. I
Thanks,
love that.
man.
So that should be out by now. If it's not, wait on it. What?
Yeah, then it's coming soon.
My fellow Martians, please go follow Joey Gutos online right now. It's at Joey_Gutos on Instagram. Go to joeygutos.com, check out his tour dates, check out his merch store, check out anything that he's got going on. Support local musicians, please. This guy is a true artist for real to the core. I'm sure that you guys have found this out yourself just by listening to this interview. But again, thank you so much for coming on Mars, bro.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. I can't wait till next time.
Of course, bro. So, and also follow me online at OnMarsPod, onmarspod.com. We'll see you guys next time. Love you. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching this episode of the On Mars Pod and for sticking around to the end, man. I really appreciate you guys. You are the real Martians. Like this video, comment below what your favorite part was, what was most inspiring to you. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications here on future interviews coming out soon, and also follow us on Instagram at On Mars Pod. Love you guys so much. We will see you next time on Mars. Episode 22.
22. Woo. Choose my lucky number.
Oh, is it?
Double.
Perfect, man. Wow, that worked out.
Yeah.